And good evening, Montreal. Beryl Wiseman here, editor of the Suburban. Welcome to the Suburban Radio Hour. Here with my great friends and colleagues, Anthony Bonaparte, features editor, Mark Lidbetter, sports editor, and my co-owner with all the entertainment society news you need to know. Lots of stories this weekend again. Lots of stories this week that you need to know about. Pick up the Suburban. We're going to be examining some of them on the show, including the latest aggravation from Mayor Plante downtown on Peel Street, closing down terraces, new court victory for the EMSB on Bill 96, the shooting near the NDG daycares, how the community is affected, the coroner's report on Seagal Barr's death, which is had some rather strange conclusions. Maison Mosaic is celebrating 20 years of remarkable work as a family service agency for the West End. But we want to start with a good friend and excellent MP, Emmanuela Lambropoulos, the MP for Saint Laurent, who introduced a motion into Parliament that Parliament recognize the Greeks' genocide. Now, we've written about this often in the Suburban, as we have about the Armenian genocide, and you may remember that we called it sometimes the Pontic genocide, but this is a time for this to happen. This was a terrible period of time when the Ottoman Turks killed Armenians, killed Greeks, killed anybody who wasn't there. It's our great pleasure to have Emmanuela Lambropoulos with us. Emmanuela, welcome.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. Tell us why now, and where does this go from here?
So I have to clarify something before we go on.
Sure.
It isn't a motion that I've presented just yet. I made a statement in the House,
right,
referring to a petition that's currently on the ground, and that I'm encouraging everybody who is interested to sign. And it's a petition that I'll be presenting in the House when we come back in the fall. And so the petition is petition E4929. We'd like to get as many people who support this idea, and want to show their support to sign it, so that we can.
Can you give people a link to where they can go to sign it online? Is there an online link?
Actually, if they just look on Google, petition E4929 Greek genocide,
right,
they'll find it.
Perfect.
It's the first thing that comes up.
Now, obviously, you want to get as many names as possible. I don't know if you have a target number, but once you're...
As many as possible, yeah, basically. And the people have until, there's a specific date, they have until August 16, 2024 at 3 p.m. to sign. Tell
us a bit about what happened in those horrible years that started in World War I, and I think it ran from 1915 to 1923.
Yeah, well, as you know, the Ottoman Empire was a bit of a dark period for Greece.
Greece and other countries everywhere.
Yeah, of course, yes.
And to remind people, the Ottoman Turks were aligned with the Germans in World War I, and Turkey was aligned with Nazi Germany in World War II. So it was a pretty bleak 30 years, but please go ahead. Yeah.
So for 400 years, all of Greece was occupied by Ottoman rule, and slowly Greece started to regain its independence, but in region. So it didn't happen all at once. It happened region by region, and there were some regions that were never won back, right? And so by that time, between the period of 1908 to 1924 specifically, because that's the period that we're covering when we're talking about the Greek genocide.
Right.
What happened is, of course, the parts that remained Turkey, or under Ottoman rule, were basically, the Greeks were being killed systematically in those areas. So there were parts of Eastern Thrace, Asia Minor, and Pontus. And so in the past, we've spoken about the Pontian genocide, and it is something that is still recognized as a genocide. However, it's across Canada. We've held consultations across Canada, and the views were mixed. However, they've come to a consensus that it should be named the Greek genocide to really encompass what happened during that period, and that it was not just in one area, but it was the Greek population in several different areas.
And we're talking, by some historical accounts, certainly 500,000 people dead, and some historical accounts take it as high as 1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
you will be presenting it as a motion or the petition come the fall.
Yes. It'll be a petition come the fall. I will also be doing a separate statement in September to talk about the Greeks in Asia Minor. And so, I want this to be seen because in the past it had been spoken about more as the Pontian genocide. No one's really ever risen in the House on Asia Minor. So I want it to be seen as a whole of Greece picture, like, all the Greek people. And so we want to start making that connection and showing the government as well that this is a broader issue. It's something that touched many populations, many Greek populations.
So, Manuela, thanks so much for being with us. We wish you well with the petition. We wish you well in the fall with the entire initiative. We're going to keep covering it. And could you just give our listeners the link again? And we understand that this is also a community effort with the Hellenic Congress. So please give us the link again.
Yes. So the link is, you would put into Google E4929.
Right.
Or just Greek genocide petition, and it would bring you exactly there. And I do want to take a moment to thank the Canadian Hellenic Congress, who did initiate this petition and who's been working really hard across the country to try to get everybody on board with the same name, which is the Greek genocide. So I know that they've been doing that ever since our consultations a couple of years ago, where we saw that there were some differences, and they managed to get everybody on board. So hats off to them for the great work that they've done on that.
Thanks very much, and hats off to you, Emanuela Lambropoulos, MP for Saint Laurent. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, two stories that were rather, I wanted to say interesting, but it's more, sometimes more disturbing. One of those is more disturbing than interesting, and it concerns the tragic death of Sigal Bar Weitzman, who got hit by a car that veered into an oncoming traffic lane on Bourret because there was a bike path, which is what residents had warned about, and the coroner actually said that's why they were hit, but she said it was human factors, not the bike path. And Joel Chiach has written a very compelling story on that coroner's report. Joel,
hey, Bill.
What is this coroner trying to say, this Julie Kim Godin? She actually used the exact phrase that residents have used, that people...
Well, I have to correct you. She was quoting what some of the witnesses and residents were saying, and family of the victim were saying about that stretch of Bourret.
About the bike path, but then in the conclusion, she actually said, yes, the driver veered onto oncoming traffic.
Right. The road was narrowed. She said that what happened was the 64-year-old driver of the minivan veered into the oncoming lane, into the left lane, for a reason that they could not figure out. And then when she tried to correct herself, she overshot the right lane and went right into the lane of to the row of parked cars on the south side of Bourret, and then bounced off of those cars and then struck the pedestrians. Now, she put together, there was video of the event. I haven't seen that video. The police reports, witnesses, and she put together this report, and her conclusion is that it was either the driver's inattention or whatever caused her to turn into that lane and then try to maneuver her way back into the right lane, which was at fault, and as well the pedestrians walking in the street with their back to traffic. Now, she didn't touch on the bike path, and I got to say, I do find it odd because coroners are empowered to look at anything they want. And she could have gone deep and long on this study. And basically, this report shows nothing more than you would find in any preliminary, not even preliminary, even a preliminary police report.
Right.
What the witnesses says, what happened at the scene, the injuries to the victim.
It's very important. I want our listeners to hear what you just said. Joel just said, coroners are empowered to go very far and deep.
Oh, sure. They can make recommendations.
And what is interesting is, in my interview with Police Chief Dagger about what the police needed to move on the encampment on some of these haters who demonstrating anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, whatever you want to call it, he said that even though coroners cannot make law, Montreal, since the Oka crisis, follows three criteria.
Yeah.
The third being violence.
Right.
And that was a criteria that the coroner in the Oka crisis set. It's not law. Right. They're just following it. So you're quite right that the coroners do have great authority.
They have a bully pulpit. They have a bully pulpit.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it is odd that she didn't go further into this. And I mean, the footnote to the sad story is that a couple of months after this tragic event, the borough decided all of a sudden to get Bourrette transformed into a one-way road and remove a lane of traffic.
But all this problem wouldn't have started had the bike path, which had faced a lot of opposition, just like the Terrebonne bike path is facing, wouldn't have been built in the first place. Seagull Bar was a well-loved, very involved community volunteer.
And what's also interesting is that last fall there were STM personnel on site on Bourrette measuring the streets and measuring the geometry of the intersections. And some residents approached them, and we reported this in the Suburban at the time. They were told that drivers were expressing frustration about having to maneuver around those corners. And when I spoke, I asked the SDM for clarification, and their response was, "No, we're not moving the bus. We're just looking for ways with the borough to make this road more fluid." That was their response. So there's some kind of cryptic messages in there. If you look at it that way. But nobody who's familiar with that road, who lives there or who uses it, will disagree that it is kind of tight now. I mean, it's quite different than it was before, especially because when you have a bike path on one side, you have only bollards separating you from traffic. So it doesn't give you a very clear line of where you can swerve if you need to, and people are always swerving on that road. Hence, that's why they're turning it into a one-way heading east.
Montreal bureaucracy and Montreal decision-making is always a thing of less than absolute wonder. It's more absolute irritation. Joel, thank you very much. Great work.
Take care. Bye.
Talking with Joel Chasha about the frustrations of Montreal decision-making on bike paths, but there was nothing more frustrating, more irritating, more embarrassing in a long time in this city than what happened on Friday when fire inspectors went down to Peel Street, the elegant center of Grand Prix weekend, and made all the restaurants clear out their terraces, take down the coverings for supposedly a violation of half of one meter. We have Alain Creton with us, my good friend and man I often call the mayor of Peel Street, the founder and owner of Chez Alexandre, the center of that street. But before we get to Alain, we have also Joel Goldenberg, and Joel did great work going down to the fire department. Joel, when you went to the fire department, was there any embarrassment? Did anybody what did they have to say?
All they had to say was, "We have no comment today. Our investigation is continuing," which is standard procedure.
How did they react to you physically walking in?
There was I think they were a little surprised, but it wasn't that evident. But, not everybody goes down to the actual places. They usually make phone calls.
It's good that you were in their face. Alain, when these guys showed up, when these inspectors showed up, was there any notice? Was it just total shock? And what was their excuse? What was the problem? Because now they've allowed you to put the tents back.
No, 14 days ago, they say, Mr. Creton, the tents are illegal because they are too close to the bâtiment, to the restaurant. You have to remove them.
But it was the city that gave the permits to you, to the other restaurants, to Ferrara. It was the city's own permits, like every year, the city's own dimensions.
Exactly. This is why the next day we contact different people at the city of Montreal, even our own friend, Mr. Zubis, which is very close to the mayoress, and also Mr. Castañera, who is the Director General of Destination Centre-Ville, and we tell them what the hell is going on. And then they went to different departments. But as you know, everybody is working from their own home. Nobody is in the office, so they have a hard time to talk to each other. And they make us wait, 2 days, 3 days after everybody's managed his own business. As in us, we are managing our restaurant. So after 10, 14 days, nothing happened to these special brigades. They are not fire department. I'm not nothing to do against the fire department, but this special department, the SIM, they decide, after being waiting for 14 days, they decide to act on the day of the Grand Prix. This is the problem. Why they didn't do it before or why they do it after. They decide to do on Friday at 9 o'clock when people are sitting down and eat. That's the problem.
How many inspectors showed up?
There were nine inspectors plus, I guess, 6, 7 policemen too.
Unbelievable. How many?
That means it doesn't look very, very bad. People left my place because they think it's, I don't know, they think it's big happen.
As a matter of fact, I will recommend to you, and I'll bring it down myself, that you at least look at the cartoon of my colleague Anthony Bonaparte, who took a shot at the inspectors very, very directly. Who took down the actual tents? Was it the city? Was it? And now they're telling.
No. After the intervention on Friday night. They ask us if you want to operate your terrace, you have to take the roof away. So the next day, we call the company Chapiteau Classique. We are very, very great people, and they send guys to take off the roof, and then we were legal on that time, and it was raining anyway. So
since then, the city, I must say, the mayor did not defend the inspectors, and I understand that they also gave permission to put the tents back. Is there any plans by you or your colleagues to put those tents back, or are you going to operate the terraces without the covering?
No. Since at the meeting we have the authority this morning at 6:45. Everybody was on the street. They decided to reinstall the tent. I'm not talking about the terrace, but reinstall the tent further than what our restaurant. And they gave us the 2 feet we were missing. So we're going to be 2 feet more on the street, but they're going to not allowing car to be parked, but anyway, it was only 5 parking anyway. And to reorganize the circulation to make everybody safe.
And tell me, last question. Any talk that the city's going to compensate you and your colleagues and the other restaurants? This was Grand Prix weekend. This is one of the biggest weekends for revenue of the year. Is the city taking any financial responsibility?
So far, not. I hope they're going to do something about the fee, the $1,000 we received. Maybe they're going to compensate to reinstall the terrace, but no promise at all from anybody. Now to sue them, we are not on that position now, but more than the money we lost, it's Montrealer and the old Quebec. About this intervention.
As you've said so well, it was a shame on the city and was a shame on this administration. And
shame on the 2 or 3 guys of this department, because I'm not going to tell everybody on the team are not cooperate, but definitely it's maybe 3, 4, 5 or more people who are overdoing it. And I guess Mr. Prudhomme, which I met him today with the mayoress, are going to find out what's going wrong on this section.
Alain Creton, merci beaucoup pour votre temps. Thank you very much for being with us. Joel Goldenberg, my dear friend, there's a call you're going to make next week. You're going to call Jimmy Zubras, who Alain called a good friend of the mayor. He's special counsel of the mayor, and ask him about some financial compensation. That's the next step. Thank you for your work.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joel. And we will be back with the Suburban Radio Hour with my good friend Anthony Bonaparte, features editor. But first, let's go to the CJD Traffic Center.